What's up, guys? Welcome back. It's Maverick here with another episode of Vivy. So, I presume that this episode will be the conclusion of this next arc here if we go with the same formula, 2 episodes to a situation or something of that sort. I'm sure it could change somehow and turn into 3 or 4 episodes, but there's no reason to believe that there's going to be any change, at least for this episode, right? And the entire Estella situation. Now, I have some theories that I mentioned in the last episode. I think this might be telling us, just how much the AI has evolved over these past 15 years of a time skip, and how AI have emotions, or rather, the underlying thing here is that they are motivated to do things for other stuff, right? Not just for a pure mission that was handed to them by humans or whatnot, but through because they have emotions, they will have needs and desires and wants and so on and so forth, right? So I think that is where this episode is going to go. I mean, they could pull a complete 180 and still go back to, oh, this is in some way still going back towards fulfilling her original mission, right? So hard to say right now, but in any case, let's just get into the episode. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Yep. Pumping these out. Birds in a cage. Hmm. Is this Stella? Yeah. Oof. Alright. Opening, eh? Then I am guessing she was probably a byproduct of, of the treatment of AI before, the AI rights law and whatnot. I kind of feel like that probably wouldn't fly in their current society. Right. I still don't understand why they didn't just have the seiyuu of Vivy be the same as the singer. So they basically have a speaking voice for Vivy and then a singing voice for Vivy as well, which are different seiyus. And I think that goes for all the other singing AI as well. I wonder why though, because most seiyu have a pretty good singing voice. A symbol for Polaris. Oh. Keksama, please go. Right. Ooh.
あんなお嬢様と一緒にするなよ。前へ走って。
Once again, why do these AI have such strong combat capabilities? Huh? What?
ありがとうございます。ゆずかさん、足の具合は？大丈夫。ちょっとひねっただけ。なるほど、そういうことですか。何がですか？この大騒ぎの原因ですよ。乗船名簿のデータの改ざんの手癖が15年前のビルの時と全く同じです。AI 大嫌い集団トワークです。
Twak again? So how are you here? Probably she's here with her family? Oh, they can do something like that? Interchangeable parts, eh? Whoosh! Oh, that is fast. Okay. I have a feeling we're gonna see some pretty badass scenes here. Hmm. So why are there multiple versions of Estella? Huh. They completely... Had a sister? So... How does... Alright. They are getting quite philosophical here. Right. The fact that AI can't be completely copied is basically them in some sort of way saying that, AI are not just machines anymore, I'm presuming. I mean, obviously the experiment failed, right? Otherwise she wouldn't have been thrown out into the trash. Right. This is actually getting a bit like I said, this is getting a bit philosophical here, right? And even though it's the exact same, it's not going into the process I described, right? Exploring the concept of AI emotions and how they are becoming, in a sense, human. They are using like a different kind of method to portray this. Wait, so this is a suicide mission? What? Oh, it's that kid? The one that she saved? So she's still just surpasses. Like, Matsumoto, can't you just, like, hack into her or something? I mean, you were able to hack into Vivy so easily. I guess this is what they're trying to do here. Oof. Now, this virus is certainly acting very slowly. I find the concept of using a headbutt at the very end very, very funny. Like, okay, I get it, right? It's a sad situation and all that, but still. Okay. So this is, in a way, like, still meeting and completing everything that actually happened in the future, right? It's still... The end result will still mostly be the same, but changed by a little bit. Did that leader guy get off? Oh, she was reformatted. 'm actually at a loss of words right now. So because they're spread into so many small pieces, they all burn up in the atmosphere. Like, sorry I'm being very quiet right now, but I do want to listen to the song. And there he goes into hibernating again. Right. Yeah, so all the pieces burned up in the atmosphere before causing any damage. 3 at last, or something of that sort. Well, see you guys after this. Well, guys, that was a stunning episode in terms of its visuals, in terms of its animation, in terms of its sound design, and obviously the entire story, the pace of the story, and how it all ended. Brilliant, right? Now, I'm sure this could also be considered a tearjerker to some. Newsflash, I'm not exactly that kind of a person who shows these kinds of overarching emotions towards anime and whatnot. If you guys are here for that, I'm sorry you kind of came to the wrong place. But, that doesn't mean I can't appreciate it for what it is, right? And definitely this is indeed beautiful in many regards here. That I will fully admit, and no, I don't think there's any question about that. Now, what I'm actually more interested in, though, is kind of like the philosophical discussions that can be extended from this particular episode here, right? And it kind of ties in with what I was originally predicting from the last episode. Now, obviously, a lot of these things didn't really come to pass. Certainly, I wasn't expecting this kind of a twin sister sort of concept here. Really changes what I was originally thinking of. And indeed, it actually completely also overwrote one of my important predictions in a major way. So let's get through it, right? The first thing I kind of want to talk about is in my original predictions, I was thinking of how, okay, this episode is going, or this particular arc is going to be the one where it's confirmed without, beyond a shadow of doubt, that the AI have their own sort of emotions, right? Their own heart, their own soul, and that is something that is going to that is something that's going to drive them to do different things, and so on and so forth. Now, you could argue that, hey, Vivy and so on and so forth have been showing emotions for a long time now, but that's still, there's still a little bit difference here, right? Emotions as to be programmed to show these emotions, right, as the correct response or something of that sort, or indeed sort of like an extension of your own mission, right, which we can still kind of sort of explain Vivy's behavior by, right? Obviously, I know that's not the case, but I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. I think that we need to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that this is, the so-called AI here, they are in many ways becoming just the exact same as human, right? And the implications of that as well. So one pretty neat thing I felt from this story was indeed the sort of experiment that Elizabeth and Stella were put into. Now, you could say, oh, that's such a cruel experiment, how could they just throw her out and whatnot. I'm not here to look at or argue or even discuss that part of the perspective. I'm more interested in the results of the experiment, actually, because I feel like this actually touches on one crucial thing, right? A computer, right? A computer, your hard drive, your cloud storage, or your bits and bytes and bits and doodads and whatnot, you can, of course, completely copy everything directly into another computer, into another storage space. In fact, it's what's called cloning a machine, right? For those who kind of work like in tech fields or whatnot, this should be a very familiar concept here. So if these AI, right, and the modern day AI as we know it, right, the current computers and the so-called AI, machine learning, deep learning, all that kind of stuff, we can easily copy it and replicate it into another machine, and it's for all intents and purposes the exact same here, right? The fact that the experiment between Estella and Elizabeth failed kind of in a roundabout way shows that, okay, there is definitely something more than just pure machine bits and bytes, ones and zeros within them, right? In fact, you can even argue that maybe this is saying that they also have the concept of a soul, right? And however you want to call it, a soul, a heart, their essence, that you can have various different things to sort of describe that. Heck, even emotions as well, right? True emotions. But the point here being is that the fact that they can't just easily be sort of copy pasted and whatnot means that they do have their own individualities as well, right? They are, for all intents and purposes, unique in their own way, and just like humans, right? It's an interesting philosophical discussion in terms of humans as well, right? Can you actually have a perfect clone of a human being? And this has also been explored in a lot of works as well, and obviously from the more religious sort of perspective, or heck, even from a philosophical sort of perspective, there's always this argument, right? Even if you could copy every single atom, every single cell in your entire body, like your brain and whatnot, would that actually constitute a complete replica of yourself? And, to some, the answer is no, right? Because there is still the intangible stuff that you cannot actually copy, right? And that is where this concept of your essence or soul comes from. And I feel like that kind of scene there, maybe I am looking too much into it, and it's basically just set up as a sort of a backstory to make this sort of scenario. But I'm choosing to interpret it a little bit differently, especially considering the subject material and whatnot. And I have a feeling that that's also in a sort of roundabout way telling us, hey, these AI have a soul as well, right? And so in that kind of process, also tell us that yes, indeed, you should, by all means and purposes, start treating these as humans as well, at least from us in a viewer perspective, right? So that's, I think, one interesting thing to take from this. I could be completely wrong. Like I said, maybe the writers did not have this in mind at all. But for me, looking at that scene, that's the thing that screams out to me the most, actually, from all the events that transpired within this episode. And based on that, you instantly have to go for, let's think a little bit further, right? Last episode, I mentioned how, I feel like at the end of the day, the AI are still going to be constrained by their so-called one true mission, right? That is something that every single AI has, and that is one thing that sort of also limits and constricts them, and in some ways, how can I say this? In some ways limit them from really becoming, indistinguishable from a human here, right? And I mean, I thought that maybe by the end of this series, we will be removing this sort of limiter from the AI. But now that I think about it, I don't think that's actually such a good idea, right? And it's maybe not going to be what the series is going for. And the reason for that is, okay, let's talk a little bit about this anti-AI organization, TOEIC, first, right? Now, obviously, they are set out to be the bad guys, the antagonists of the situation, and I'm sure there's going to be many people being like, oh, hey, how can they do this kind of stuff to AI? And indeed, for that leader of the group, I do believe he's probably the boy that Vivy saved 15 years back, and so on and so forth. How could he do something like this? How could you treat Elizabeth like this, and so on and so forth? But putting all that aside, again, I'm not really here to just talk about those kinds of points as well, but look at the more underlying kind of thing here. Now, if we do consider that AI are indistinguishable from humans at this point in time, right, they can fully feel human emotions as well. And indeed, like, looking at this episode, it's hard to argue past this point, right? Having the same emotions as humans, being able to treat their bonds, have this sort of sense of pride for their mission, and so on and so forth. Well, what is the role of humans going to be in the future of this world, right? In the future of this society, in the future of the universe, right? AI are, for all intents and purposes, stronger, faster, more capable, and completely outclassing humans in every so which way, right? Is like, what is the purpose remaining for humans on this earth, right? You guys get what I mean? Like, sure, you could kind of argue like, because they are AI, but they have rights too, and so on and so forth. We can coexist peacefully, but it doesn't really work all that easily, right? When you are so much of a superior being over your counterpart here, there's no real equality here, right? Like, sure, you could, in a sense, try to say, oh, we're all equal and all that, but like, come on, think about it. If there was someone in your everyday lives that is like, 100 times stronger than you physically, 100 times, probably not even 100 times, like 1,000,000 times smarter than you, right? Because they can do all these complex calculations and so on and so forth in just a blink of an eye, a snap of a finger. No, why are you even here, right? So the interesting thing about this is that this is not an old concept, right? This has been explored in a lot of classical sci-fi works as well. And one thing in a lot of sci-fi works, a way around this type of problem was still that, however far AI advanced, they are still going to be bound by one rule, right? Like I mentioned Isaac Asimov in the last episode, right? Considered by many to be one of the greatest the greatest fathers of sci-fi and whatnot. Writer, of course, just like Tolkien is considered one of the front and foremost the grandfather of fantasy fiction. So Isaac Asimov in and a lot of derivative works that are based on his ideals and whatnot, they have this sort of concept, right? The three laws of robotics and whatnot, right? You cannot harm humans, and what is it? You cannot harm humans. You cannot harm other robots, and then the third one is you must preserve yourself, right? I think that's, I kind of forgot. I only remember the first rule being you cannot harm humans, right? And so based on that, no, however far AI evolve, they are still ultimately bound by that as well, right? And then it kind of goes philosophical in a lot of ways, considering what work you want to go into. But still, there is this distinction here that keeps them from having that still makes it that so that humans still have their place in the universe here, and they're not completely overtaken by AI and whatnot. So, that was kind of like a tangent, right? How does that relate to this work as a whole? So, this goes back into the concept of this one true mission, right? If AI are still going, like, I feel like the only way, in fact, for everything to go peacefully and harmoniously towards the future is if all AI still are ultimately bound by the one true mission that they are given, right? That they are given by humankind and whatnot. And that is how, you know, humankind still has one sort of edge or one sort of difference from AI here. Otherwise, you know, humankind as a race should just die out. There's no real reason for them to be here anymore, right? If we're looking at this from a more utilitarian perspective. And, you know, again, this is how I normally look at things. Obviously, if you want to go the art and argue the we're all equals and so on and so forth, I'm not interested in that. You can have like a nice sort of concept all the much that you want. I'm looking at things from a more practical perspective here, right? So that's why, you know, in lieu of this and in lieu of what everything I've seen from this episode and whatnot, I'm actually sort of shifting my stance here. I don't think they should, the AI in the end should be freed from their one true mission or whatnot. And in fact, we might even get to see that to the end, right? Now, how Vivy is already interpreting her mission, right? Bringing smiles to humans, and so in sort of like a roundabout way, she's fighting to save humanity and whatnot. You know, to have that kind of concept instilled within her, and for that to be her one true purpose, right? And so all AI need to have this one true purpose. Otherwise, as we can see, Elizabeth, how she was completely, you know, how she was completely lost without this, without her mission, without her purpose, and how much it meant to her once she regained that purpose as well, right? You could, in a way, argue that this is sort of like, dehumanizing them, but see, that's where this is where the sort of interesting part lies, right? Do we want to completely humanize them in a way? And in fact, you know, what does that even mean anymore, right? If they are by having these emotions and having these you know, having the exact same concepts as humans, right? You shouldn't even use humans as a comparison baseline anymore. You should use the AI and say you humans should be more like AI. You get what I mean? So yeah, very interesting, and I do want to see how they plan to end all this, right? Like what kind of ending concept that they have by the end of the entire series, right? What is the status quo going to be by the very end of this season, by the very end of this series? And in fact, I don't even know if it's actually going to end within 12 episodes and whatnot. I mean, I want to remain spoiler free, so I haven't really checked out the endings or so on and so forth, or even how many how far ahead this project is planned or so on and so forth. So yeah, basically, I hope that kind of made sense to you guys, and, you know, feel free to ask more questions if you want me to clarify on some points. Hopefully, I got my point across here, and, you know, if you were expecting a review portion just to say, oh, look at how sweet the sisters are, or how cruel they were treated, and so on and so forth, like, again, I'm sure there's a ton of other reviewers or anime reactors out there that can do kind of that. I like to focus on this kind of stuff. That's how I do my reviews of all series as well, and honestly, I feel like it's a very, very interesting concept, right? Don't you guys agree? But again, as always, leave your thoughts below, and if you have any questions, sure, I will be happy to have a conversation. So, anyways, thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.